ready to take on those matters that we think have been pertinent all through the week. Richard Baguma, a communication expert, is already in the studios. Dr. Gerard Wanzara, a man from Namisi Indra, is in the studios, and we have a special guest this morning looking at all those big stories. And indeed, we're starting a new month. It is the 1st of April today. And at the beginning of this week, several road accidents indeed were reported here and there, and that is always a concern Richard raises every time we sit here, and it calls for an extra effort anyway. And again, this week we received reports that the National Army, the UPDF, made significant gains in the operation, the ongoing operation in the eastern DRC. Reports indicated that more than 10 ADF rebels were killed, 10 or 20 were killed. And again, the UPDF flagged off a contingent of 5,000 UPDF soldiers to the DRC to serve under a peacekeeping mission under the East African Standby Force. And even the president wrote a document to the Bazukuru, and he was clarifying on what the UPDF is doing in Congo, especially under the East African Standby Force. He indicated that the UPDF is not battling, is not fighting as reported in the media. It is only there as a neutral force. Possibly it can engage in battles when it is provoked. And again, where it is 20 rebels were reported to have been killed, and an assortment of military equipment recovered. Again, in this week, we also look at the global concern over the violent protests in Kenya. The protests by the opposition, Azimio la Umoja. Even this week, there were more violent protests. We looked at how unknown people invaded a farm belonging to the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, stole animals, livestock, and everything. And today we'll also take stock of what could be the cost of these protests, especially to Uganda. Well knowing that all our imports, most of our imports come through or go through Kenya, and we'll give it time to look at what it means, especially after the Prime Minister made a statement in Parliament implying that the demonstrations withstanding trade and the movement of goods and services has remained stable, but indeed it is a big concern there. Police concluded investigations into the diversion of Karamoja, or relief items meant for Karamoja. We were told next week the DPP will take over the files, and the investigations are still going on. The top government officials implicated in this saga, all this week, they have been reporting at the CID Chibuli headquarters, and we have gathered that the CID headquarters have been a no-go area for the ordinary people and even the media. Blockades were put, along the road to Chibuli, and you had to have a big reason to access the Chibuli CID offices. And we also give some time to this particular topic and look at the progress, look at the process of investigations, and possibly what we can expect from these investigations. I will, at this point, introduce Dr. Gerard Wanzara. please speak to our viewers and we kick off the show.
Once again, Apple, it's good to be here. Good morning, our viewers. It's always good to meet you and have this moment every Saturday. And I also welcome our sister who has joined us today. We are looking forward to engaging. And of course, my co-panelist, the champion of good feeding. But this morning I saw him eating cake. So I don't know whether it's healthy for him. But you're welcome, Richard. Good to see you here always. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerard. It's a pleasure having you on the show this morning. Richard, you have been provoked. Speak to our viewers.
Good morning, viewers. As always, I recognize the power of God and the grace that He extends to us despite our transgressions. I also would like to say good morning to the viewers who faithfully journey with us through this. Dr. Wanzara, I can understand that I didn't share cake, but
that is the frustration.
That is the frustration. We will share. And my sister, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining the team.
It's a pleasure, Richard, always to have you on the show. And it's my honor to introduce Nakabira Nashiba. She is a youth leader from Africa Youth Development Link. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yes, once again, Nakabira Nashiba, and I work with African Youth Development Link, a youth-led organization focused on empowerment of the youth to participate in leadership and decision-making processes in the country. And yes, this is my first time on the show, and I'm quite glad to be part of this, great platform. And I want to convey my greetings from the Secretariat. It's a pleasure to share with everyone around here and the viewers at large. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Dr. Gerard, quickly, those reported gains at the front line in the DRC, what do you make of that in a quick comment? And especially after, and the president, I think you looked at his document to the Bazukuru. Looks like UPDF, and the joint operations in DRC are actually progressing on very well.
When I looked at the document, and first comment about the document, the way the head of state is signing lately, I think he has come to acknowledge that he's leading a very, very young country. And Uganda is one of the youngest, with the youngest people. Our average age, I think, is 16, and the country. So when you see him signing off, so he acknowledges that, and I think he should also design policies that target young people to ensure that they make a meaningful contribution. I'm a board member of our organization, and these are things we are discussing always to see that the leadership adapts to the challenges of the day and the context. About the gains, I'm not like other pessimistic Ugandans who think the UPDF went to Congo to play. I know the threat of the ADF was real, and we lost people here because of bombs. And so the only questions I had is that it looks like initially our intelligence was wrong on the number, because they used to say these people are less than 300. So we have been seeing them killed, reports of killing, but more are still being killed. From
the spokesperson of the Mountain Division, he indicated that more than 400 ADF rebels have been killed in these joint operations.
Yeah, so meaning that
there were many.
The threat was bigger than what they were communicating earlier. But this achievement is great. Only that such operations, of course, you cannot easily know the cost because some information has to be concealed. But for me, I think that is a plus. Because who doesn't want a secure country? And we need to pacify that area because it has an impact on the trade in the region. If we can pacify it, then our traders, our people can interact properly. Even that's when the EAC will be meaningful.
I'm not so sure how far the project to construct roads in the DRC has gone. Of late, I've not seen a report about that.
Actually, that project stalled. You remember when the contract was signed and then machines were put on the ground. Later on, machines were confiscated by the Congolese government because of not paying taxes by the company that was deployed to make the roads. And then the issues of insecurity came up, the M23 and so forth. So recently, when the other day when our army went there, I saw some leaders in Congo, inside Congo, saying that now since the UPDF has arrived there and there seems to be hope for security, then these projects can be restarted. So that they create this security road and trade routes to promote, to have the intention to intended to achieve.
All right. Richard, looking at the document the president authored, he indicated that even the Congolese have managed to harvest their cocoa in many years. I mean, peace is returning to Eastern Congo where the UPDF, I mean, in joint operations is situated, I mean, working with the Congolese government. And what do you make of that?
I do not recall that we have ever stopped being in Congo. I don't recall that. I think we have always been in the Congo. It just has been different shades of our presence in the Congo. Public, not so public, but not so concealed anyway. We cannot fail to be in the Congo unless we are a suicidal people. It would be suicidal not to go in the Congo. It's an example that I can share again, that when you have a homestead near a piece of land whose owner does not keep it, look after it, it will become bushy. It will become dangerous to you. Rats will come from there and invade your house. Termites may come and eat the trees you plant in your compound. Thieves and other rogues will wait for you at your gate and use that as a cover. So you have to take interest in that abandoned bush near you. Despite the protestations of the owner, you are affected. So that's been the situation that we have had with Congo. Now that has been compounded by the other occurrences, that in that piece of land next to you, there are people who are hostile to you and they throw stones and other things across the fence, or they seek to break the fence and come into your compound. So I think it's suicidal to just sit by and watch. I think one of the things we have been trying to do is to legitimately, quote unquote, go into the Congo. So in the recent past, we have had the legitimate going into the Congo A. So the legitimate going in the Congo A was that one which we signed with the Congolese government to work side by side with the Congolese armed forces. That was legitimate, quote unquote, A. And then we fought very hard to have legitimate B, which is the East Africa Standby
Force.
Yes. That was a major political achievement, very major diplomatic coup. And therefore, we prepared. Now, you need to read our desire to be in the Congo, in the numbers, the type of equipment, and the skills of the contingents that have gone there. If you remember, the East Africa Standby Force started with 200. And we talked about it here. I said that's just the symbolism. It was not a force that was going to change anything on the ground. It didn't actually. Now I can tell you, we are
sending 5,000. We sent 5,000 this week.
Plus. So we have 5,000 plus.
Plus.
Because there's A, there's B, and we had been operating in the Congo anyway. So it's a significant force. And then comes the document. And
before you got the document, you in your submission at the beginning, you insinuate that possibly nothing much will change, whether we are in Congo. Actually, you say we've been there. I mean, and in that document, the president says that even the rebels are very, very, very far now from the border. So looks like the threat is far away from us.
First of all, I think something significant will shift. And we saw that in Sudan, in South Sudan. We had a lot of threats that were South Sudan based. Once we entered into South Sudan, they migrated to North Sudan and Central African Republic. These ones will migrate to across the river, across the Congo, to the other Congo, Brazzaville, and also the Central African region and there, where we are deployed also, by the way. Sometimes we forget that. So I think something significant is going to happen. Now, for me, there are other more important interests. And we are talking about infrastructure development that facilitates our trade. So if you look at the volume of trade we have, Congo becomes the most important trading partner that we have. So going in there is the same as America going in Iraq or France going to Iraq. It's just the same. We have very deep interests, survival interests, development interests. So it's geopolitical, it's economic, and then we have very tight social ties.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we have very, I mean, we speak the same languages, we do the same, we have same people across. So for me, this came late. It took too long to come. The legitimate going in with a very robust force to make sure that the occurrences, the things that are happening there, be them military or political, we have leverage over them.
Before I bring in Nashiba, Gerard, the Congolese are actually up in arms with the UN. They've been attacking them and accusing them of overstaying, doing nothing, as mayhem is being committed by the armed elements down there. And can we say now UPDF and the Congolese army are giving hope to replace the blue helmets that have been there for almost more than 2 decades?
Apollo, when you look at the conflicts in Congo right from 1996, there was an assumption that the world, the UN that we know, could just come in with the usual peacekeeping without studying the interconnected challenges affecting Congo and the region, just to come and stand there as peacekeepers, and then the conflict will end. That was very, very wrong. Because as you are aware, we have always discussed here that Richard has just showed you the example. We have the ADF, the other side. We used to have the LRA, the other side. Then our friends, the Rwandese, have the Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, for Hutu rebels, they also live there. Then you have other small groups. Actually, there used to be over 100 in the same place. So simply bringing the UN forces and stationing there, you saw interests changing. Because it's a mineral-rich area, you'll see different groups actually fighting for control of certain groups. Then some commanders of the UN even as they release reports condemning Uganda, they are sometimes also involved in trafficking, you know, in stealing gold and so forth. So for me, the advantage I see which the East African community brings in, it looks, it appears like it's a homegrown solution involving all parties, brothers that are affected by this problem in the Congo, and therefore they may have the will to ensure that they really solve this problem once and for good. And honestly, you can see the Somalia model. Okay, we cannot say Somalia is very, very successful, but you can see that when the local forces of Kenya, Uganda came in and their mandate changed to peace enforcement, there's some resemblance of success. And so what we could do, let the international community, even as it shifts, we begin by ourselves. Actually, it would be very okay that they remove those UN forces, support the operations of the East African standby force, and we sort that problem ourselves.
All right, now, Nashiba, you can make your comment also. What do you think about what is happening across the border, especially in our interest as neighbors?
To pick it up from where Dr. stopped, for me, I think regional peace is quite important. It's a geopolitical factor that needs collective forces to try and address some of the peace and security issues affecting the region. Because like he has said, these insurgencies have implication on our key regional factors such as trade. So for me, it's quite important to make sure that at least we come together as the different bodies, the different forces, to make sure that at least we have peace in Congo. And also, I'll dwell much on the demonstrations that are happening in Kenya, because they are equally regional factors, and if we do not try to pick lessons or address the insurgencies that are happening in Kenya, perhaps they are likely to spill over to other regions and also affect our trade. I should say that we've been seeing Kenya as a country that had transformed in terms of democracy, but of late, if we are to look at the demonstrations that are happening, of course, they are alleging that they are because of the hiking prices, the high standards of living, and the election that was rigged. So for me, I think we should say, I should say that maybe Kenya did not pick lessons from maybe from the previous elections, which the previous election that happened in 2007. It was 2007. Okay, the other one. The violence. Yeah, the violence that happened then. So for me, if they had picked enough lessons, they would have perhaps, managed this, because the leaders of these violations alerted, and they said that they will be demonstrating on which days? Monday and Thursday. And Thursday.
Nashiba will get into we'll get to that discussion, and let's conclude on this. And Richard, one comment. Do you think it's time UN, the Brahmates, leave Congo and possibly a homebred force take over the peacekeeping and enforcement in that region?
Withdrawal from any mission can be very detrimental if it is done without strategy. So I think we need to be very careful about the withdrawal. You see, it's like, I don't know if you have seen a huge body of water when the water is withdrawing, it takes everything with it. It tends to destabilize the boats, everything that was there comes with it. That's what a force like the Congo, it has become, over the 2 decades or so, it has become part of the infrastructure and the body politic of the Congo. So how you take it out, it must be strategic.
UN?
You saw how the US was coming out of Afghanistan. Yeah, you saw the chaos and what that meant. So when you have a force of tens of thousands, I think,
but the
and
US,
you want to withdraw it.
In the case of the US, I think they had a lot of control, huge control over what was happening in either Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere. But I'm talking about the UN peacekeeping, the MONUSCO, I think, peacekeeping force. Yeah, and then they have been under criticism that possibly they should leave the country. They are not doing a lot on their mandate.
Yeah, if we assumed that the United States forces in Afghanistan had huge control, if I use your word, how come they were chased out quickly like rabbits?
After 20 years.
We have to test, yeah. But it is the same, that it's 20 years plus, I think, for the UN force. If any withdrawal of a force that is not planned well and strategic will always leave chaos. Just imagine our withdrawal from Moroto many years ago. I think that was during the Tanzanians and Aminu. It has left the gun situation in the region up to today. We are still dealing with it. So what I think should be happening is the timed reduction, scaling down of the UN operation in Congo. At the same time, that goes with the increase in the scaling up of the East African standby force. What I think should be happening is, for example, the equipment and the other resources should transition from the UN force to the East Africa standby. But it has to be gradual, strategic, and well planned.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And it is time we go straight to our main topic for discussion this morning. This is The Dialogue. You'll be engaging us via our WhatsApp line, 0701 60 9906, 0701 60 9906. Send in your messages and your comments, in regard to what is being discussed in the studios. Dr. Gerard Wele Wanzala is here. Richard Baguma, a communication expert, is in the studios, and our special guest is Nakabira Nashiba from Africa Youth Development Link, and looking at those matters we think are pertinent to our country. Dr. Gerard Wele Wanzala, let's look at what is happening across the border in Kenya. This week, many more violent protests, because I think the first week it was only one demonstration, but now it's bi-weekly, and the pictures we saw during this week's protests were actually dire. You look at people raiding a farm, cutting trees and stealing livestock and all that. And I was intrigued by a statement from Honorable Wandayo Pio, an ODM leader, a member of the Azimio, Ugunju MP. And he was accusing Uganda that possibly it is assisting Kenyan police, that this red tear gas we are seeing has been procured from Uganda. It is, and that brings us to the gist of our discussion this morning: the effects of these protests and what can happen as a spillover of these protests to Uganda, and amid concerns around its effect on trade and the supply chain, as our imports all go through Kenya. And actually this member of this legislator also talked about the imports. That Uganda should know that all their, actually talked about Museveni. Museveni should know that all his imports go through this place here. And I talked about the statement that was presented by the Prime Minister in Parliament, saying that there's absolutely no need to panic. That I mean, it's still okay. What do you make? And it's good you come from near those borders, and you must have been picking some of those information around that side.
Yeah. First, I'll begin with the Prime Minister's statement of saying there's no need to panic. I think there is no need to panic, but there's a need to monitor the risks as they unveil, because you saw that the protest started very peacefully, but the second week they changed the face, including the allegations of some people in the ruling party in Kenya organizing those thugs who came to raid the farm of the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Actually, it's a family business. So a responsible government would say that we have these strategies in the event that it becomes more violent and unable for us to transport our goods and to get our imports, then we have this plan. But the fact is that we know, you and I who have done some studies on those northern corridor, central corridor, and southern corridor, okay, from the coast, we know that the 80% to 90% of goods destined for inland from the Indian Ocean pass through the northern corridor, which is through Kenya, then to Uganda, and then to other countries within the region. The Lamu corridor is not so much developed, and you know it targets Ethiopia and then South Sudan. So therefore, in the event that these protests become very violent, definitely Uganda will be affected. And you know it will also increase the cost of business, because the trade, the central corridor is longer in terms of distance. I saw people very happy with the MV Mutebi, that some fuel is coming in. But if you compare our consumption in terms of fuel per day and what that MV Mutebi brings, honestly, it cannot sustain us. Exactly. So therefore, for me, I'm concerned as an East African, and therefore Uganda can be affected. Then the other wrong precedent these demonstrations have caused, and with due respect to the Deputy President of Kenya, I think he's being so hard in terms of the statements throwing around. Because if you win an election with a difference of 200,000, so if you put in a margin of error, most likely the minority are the ones ruling. So you will not threaten the entire population and say, we cannot talk, we are not. And given the pressure that these protests have begun to attract statements from the African Union, from diplomats, I can predict at some point these people will talk. We'll sit down and talk. I know there are those in the ruling party in Kenya who are threatened, who are saying, you see, Raila as usual is pushing to enter government and weaken us from within. But if you have such a divided population, I think it is in order that you speak. But coming back to the effect of these protests, whereas many are looking at it in terms of the high cost of living, this is just a trigger. It's a trigger. You know, Raila, like I said in the beginning, always wants to take advantage of such situation to push for some changes. There are discussions in Kenya where people are saying Ruto is hijacking the electoral process of 2027 by single-handedly appointing the electoral commission after all these commissioners being dismissed, you see. So they are saying, no, they want to achieve that. We sit together, follow the procedure, and have a neutral commission.
Okay.
So if you go and you check behind the
So
cards,
they could be positive changes Raila is pushing for.
yes, he's looking at 2027 elections, some electoral reforms. He may also be looking for a handshake, of course. Usually when you have a team in the government, you are privy to some information, resources, and therefore you are able to influence from within. And you see, that's why in Uganda it is extremely becoming very hard to achieve certain reforms, because right now the ruling party and the president seem to be at their strongest in terms of yes. And then you find the whole opposition is outside. And so because of the denial of resources, some of them end up going at night to solicit for resources individually, and therefore in the process they get weaker and weaker and weaker. While the population may be angry, the leaders may be totally on separate path.
All right, thank you so much. And Nashiba, what do you make of those protests? And you had started off on that topic, and you can start off from there.
I think I should first of all appreciate the fact that these protests they are anchored in their constitution, whereby they derive that from Article 37 of their constitution to go up and demonstrate. So whereas this demonstration constitutional, for me, I think they should not turn out to be destructive, like we have seen recently, having some groups of young people, raiding the farms and cutting, the materials at the farm, destroying property, the animals and all that. So for me, whereas we try to exercise the constitutional rights, we need to be mindful of the impact that can create. However, I should commend and appreciate the Kenyan forces for the way they've tried to manage this. I think they've demonstrated they've been more professional.
I think so far there are 2 reported dead.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, 2 deaths and maybe around 100 injuries, including civilians and police. So for me, I think the Kenyan police is managing it well, but from the effect it can create, Dr. Warwick has mentioned some of them, that because when these cases or events escalate into more destructive events and violence, of course the movement of goods from Kenya entering Uganda, it will become a little more hectic, and that will of course have an implication on the cost of goods in this country, which will really be something unpleasant to the country and the surrounding countries at large. So for me, I think we should be equally concerned as Uganda. And I'm glad that African Union has already issued a comment, and they've guided that at least these 2 parties need to get together and have a discussion, a conversation about what needs to be done. But like still Dr. Warwick said, I think Raila is after sitting on a round table and see how they are going, to get out of this smiling, But at the end of the day, it is the people who get affected more, not these elites, the big people, the big actors who are involved in these insurgencies. But also, I need to say that we have a challenge, not only in East Africa, but in Africa at large. If we go ahead to doubt the management of election the elections and the electoral management, administration, the general process. I think we shall continue experiencing these scenarios of violence. And for me, I think we should have a strategy. We should have a regional strategy to try to mitigate the political electoral violence in the region.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Richard, I don't know where you can start from, but I want to draw your attention to the statement from the Prime Minister. Actually, that's from government. No, Ugandans should absolutely, there's no need absolutely for panic. And it's unfortunate that a report or a statement from the Ministry of Energy and Minerals has not been presented to Parliament as directed by the Speaker. The Speaker directed the Minister of Energy to table a statement on the status of oil reserves in this country. Start from there. But it is next week, until next week when they will bring that statement.
I think whenever there is some disturbance on a supply route to any place, there could be impacts felt, particularly in the pricing of things or in the availability of some things. So that is a possibility, that if you have disturbances in Mombasa or along the route, there could be. There is nothing as of now to show that there has been any interference with the flow, the transportation of things here. There's nothing. The railway is moving, the vehicles are moving.
For information, last evening I talked to one of the leaders of it is called the national chairperson for cross-border trade along Busia and Malaba borders, and he said the volume of goods has really gone down. There is people are not so sure of what will happen next.
So that's what I was coming to. That I said there is always, if there is a worry or a concern, there will be some impact. What is happening now is not that there are things happening to people. Some people are just being careful.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's not that there has been anything that has happened.
Okay.
So panic is therefore not necessary. I will agree with the Prime Minister's statement. We are not in a situation where we should have panic.
With this fragile economy we have today?
No. Panic? No. We may have concerns. Have contingency plans.
Okay.
That's why, for example, the Speaker will ask, what arrangement do we have for fuel?
Yeah.
But I don't think we are in a situation where we need to panic. And I said, I can repeat this here, that this is not the first time this is happening. So we have had scenarios and we have had readiness contingency plans, which I'm sure are being looked at and would be activated if necessary. The other one is that I because I have people across, and I've been talking to them. Now, the violence has actually been confined to certain spaces.
Oh, like...
Yeah, so I said, can you give me a short video of, and they said, give me Koinange Street. And the person works at the Nation, my colleague, and took a video and said, but this place is open.
Oh.
Yeah. I talked to my sister. My sister lives in Nairobi. She said, I am in office and I dropped the kid at school today. So while there are concerns of being readiness, some of the neighborhoods and what have not been affected. No. So that also tells you that sometimes, in fact, many times, the things in the media can sometimes put a situation and you think there is a standstill. I used to experience this when we had war in northern Uganda. And unless I would have gone to Gulu or Kitgum, I would have no experience I would go to Busia and Soroti and Kabale and Fort Portal. But at the time I would fly out of here, the first thing would be, oh, yeah. So I think that's part of the thing. We need to be concerned of anything that happens, if any flare-up in the region. My sister talked about something important.
Yeah.
The attempted driving of doubt in electoral processes. I think one of the people who has done this very successfully is a gentleman called Donald Trump. I think he has really mobilized millions of people in such a strong democracy to have a doubt in the electoral system. So imagine if you keep driving doubt in an electoral system in a fragile democracy like ours, you undermine it very much. I think that's what is being done. Why I think that is not particularly clever is that you also present yourself in that same electoral system. It means when you succeed, it will be said that
it will be the reverse.
It will be the reverse. So I think that's very important. But the other one is the role of the vice president historically in this process. I want you to remember when Ruto was vice president, His Excellency Ruto, and remember at the time of the handshake with His Excellency Musyoka, who was the vice principal to Raila at that time. They are the ones who traded the most virulent barbs.
Oh.
So the principals leave their deputies to stretch the negotiation positions.
Oh.
So this one is on the extreme, this is on so they stretch it's a negotiating tactic. Wanzara, I don't know if he has been in trade union processes, you know this. Yeah. So it is the, yes.
So it is deliberate.
Even when they had these handshakes, they even reminded each other.
The deputy president will
takes
go
the most extreme route.
Yeah.
The principal will wait. And we'll say, oh, okay, now let's come in the middle. But people talk about talking. How can we not see that talking is already taking place?
Oh.
How can we not see that? What was the US legislator doing? Meeting both of them. This is the US legislator. The same gentleman is the one who mediated immediately after the election to make sure there is no violence led by Raila. What I think is that negotiation to say you think the vote has been stolen, let's not go violent and ban this country. My thinking is that there were things that were agreed.
Oh.
I think that the Ruto team has, within a short time, violated the things that were agreed. It is the same, if you see the same team from the American side, who is friends with these guys and has been in these processes. Perhaps they were the guarantors, and they now come to say, look, when we agreed this, you are doing this. Yeah, so let's come back.
So the talks could be
when you see, Raila on his Twitter account wrote that I had a great meeting with so and so. The same with Gachagua. Wrote I had a great meeting with the same gentleman with his delegation. How can one not see that the talking is going on? Then I can also say that yesterday the convoy of Raila was going to a certain place. Whom were they going to meet? So talking is going on already.
It is going on. So even we, the neighbors, should not be
at this time
worried.
We cannot have panic. No, we must have concerns and we must keep alert. But it is not necessary, in my view, to panic.
All right, viewers, it is time for a break. This is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo. I will go for a break. But when we return, we'll also, again, come back to this particular topic briefly and look at what could be the role of the regional leaders. I remember very well at the inauguration of Dr. William Ruto, a gentleman was named the Muzei of the whole region. What is his role? What is he doing? Let's go for a break and we'll return after a short while.
They're asking for power.
Welcome from the break. This is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo, and we are looking at those matters we are sure of national importance, looking at the protests in Kenya and their effect on trade and the movement of goods and services and even people across the border. And also we'll be looking at the police investigations into the diversion of Karamoja relief items, and that comes after we got a report that the investigations, police investigations, have now been concluded, and next week it will be the DPP's office to come in and possibly move to the next level. But as we kick off the show, we will be again concluding on what is happening in Kenya. I have a comment here, and before I ask Dr. Gerard Werike Wanzala to tell us what he thinks the elder in the region is doing about this. Somebody says, and he is Alex live from Chibuli. He says, the dialogue, panelists, thanks for the program. There is a lot of need of monitoring and security conscious around Kenya borders, because imports play a most vital role in revenue collections of this country. So the Prime Minister shouldn't have said that there is no need to panic. Thanks, Apple and Salt Media. Thank you so much. Do not call this line. You just send a message on 0701 609906, and we'll be looking at your comment or contribution. Dr. Gerard Werike, talk about what this elder is doing about what is happening across.
Yeah, before I come to the elder, I think people are misunderstanding what the Prime Minister said. She said, let's not panic. You see, when you panic, you will create things like smuggling of fuel, you know, running with salt across the border, when actually the things are still stable. I think when she says, let's not panic, but let's monitor, let's evaluate the risks, let's have strategies for plan B. I think that's what a good administrator is supposed to do, not to panic. And then two, the issue of the elder statesman, of course they referred to, Mr. Ruto referred to our president, the president of Uganda. If you look at the relationship between President Ruto and President Museveni, it is kind of that of a son and a father.
Yeah, true.
And in around 2 elections, Mr. Ruto used to come to Kapchorwa, Buko, even campaign for President Museveni, and donate iron sheets to churches, to schools, you know, the regional politics. And he has always come. He came with his family here to seek advice, with his children, his wife. So, but now, whether the other actors in Kenya can trust the mediation of our president, that's another issue. Because as you know, the Raila group has always been suspicious that Uganda interferes in their campaigns, and I believe they think Uganda plays a key role even in 2007 to ensure that he does not assume the presidency. It is a belief amongst the supporters.
But Doctor,
so
even now,
for you to be
even now, Uganda is being being suspected to be part. I mean, to be playing a role in these protests.
The fact is that if you have neighbors, okay, there are always interests. There are interests of the Ugandan leadership, and there are interests of different groups in Kenya. And a government in Uganda would be much more interested in who they see become a president in Kenya. Okay? But now you talked about the role our president can play. You know, for you to play a key role in stabilizing a place like that one, you need to be seen to be neutral. But now if the majority, like you mentioned, the MOP, Opiyo Wandayi, is ODM, these are people who are already saying, without evidence, by the way, that Uganda is involved and Uganda police is already interfering in Kenya. They do not have any evidence to prove that. But when they blow up these statements, they go into the ears of their supporters. And therefore, for me, the best is that Uganda at the moment needs to just play neutrality, neutral. In case of any advice, it should be done maybe behind the scenes, okay? But not to come in public, because if you come in publicly, we may jeopardize and we may end up hurting our own interests. Yes.
Okay, Richard, what do you make of the president's? Maybe we don't know what he's doing, but what do you think? Could he be of some could he have some impact on quelling the process of finding a solution?
I think it would be, but to call it politely, it would not be clever at all for any of the regional leaders not to pay attention to the developments in a neighboring country. I think it's important and it is critical that any leader would be paying serious attention to conflicts in a neighboring country. For Uganda and Kenya, it is critical that Uganda invests even more in information collection, in intelligence analysis, in economic modeling, to see what an escalation of challenges in Kenya would cause, and therefore prepare adequately. So I think it would not be clever at all for any leader not to pay attention. Secondly, I think it is important that our leader takes interest in contributing to whatever ways to de-escalate the situation, but stabilize it in the short, medium, and long run. Because we are tied, we have no choice. We have no choice. So if any comments, public comments, or any interaction may be misunderstood or may be misrepresented by the public, or the politicians, as the attempts are happening to be, like you made a comment, the sensational politicians are trying to link their problems to us here. But the problems are real and they exist and they are there, whether they has anything to do with here or not. Secondly, I have seen, and my sister has been commending the police for its professionalism. The Kenyan police has actually had a long history of professionalism. Oh. Yeah. It has had a long history of professionalism. That even when they are alleged to have committed crime, even when they go for the opponents of government or the opponents of leaders, they actually do it behind the doors. Yeah, they don't come out to go in uniform and go shoot. They will come and squeeze your neck, but they will do it behind the curtains. So at least they have been that professional in that sense. The other thing is that they also have battled. They have battled Al-Shabaab. They have battled, all these kinds of things. So I think they have been professional. This time they came out in full force. Yeah, true. And I can tell you, it's very clear that you must protect the economic interests of Kenya and the huge investments by especially the Western world in Kenya. So they're coming in full force. The allegation that that this chemical that you spray comes from here.
The red tear gas.
Of course, that is ridiculous. Of course, it is like going and getting Panado and say this Panado has come from Uganda. We know where these things are manufactured. They are imported, they are paid for taxes, and we know who manufactures them. So I think this is just being ridiculous and getting limelight, some media attention. Okay. But of course, there has to be consultation, I am sure. I strongly believe that there are consultations, constant consultations, between leaders on the other side and leaders here.
Thank you so much. And we need to conclude on this matter. Your parting shot on this matter, Nashiba.
Yeah, so for the negotiation, negotiation as one of the channels to bringing back peace in the region is something good, and I would really encourage the process of negotiation. But like Doctor said, the process should be trusted, because now here trust is the main goal. If the process is not trusted, even the outcome will be doubted. So that means we shall not have addressed the challenges at hand. So for me, I think we just need to be sure of the processes, to be as clear as possible, and all the parties to agree on who leads the process. Good. Secondly, I want to see the regional bodies work. Why should it be
East African community?
Who is the East African community? Why should it be individuals, coming out and be like, we can do this, we can do this? I really want to see the regional bodies work. I want to see the East African community coming up on this, to try and make sure that they curb this
Hope
tension.
you're not inviting the African Union, because that one, I think the intervention can only stop at issuing a statement. I don't think I don't know. Can they do much more much more than a statement?
I may not think so, because for under so many political circumstances, they've come out and made statements, or even they've made recommendations, especially, for example, in line with the electoral management systems in the region. But because of the sovereignty of the countries, it's quite hard to, try and practice these recommendations. So for me, I think East African community in this case should be in a right position to
maybe
pick up from there.
Something about the African Union. In 2007, the African Union was very instrumental in trying to bring these parties in Kenya together. They were involved, although they brought highly respectable people like Kofi Annan to mediate on both sides, but they facilitated the process. So if you facilitate, then that's non-interference, but you're just bringing people together to ensure that peace prevails. And then the last one, about the professionalism of police. When Richard was speaking, I recalled one officer who was really humiliated this week
here
in Uganda. I think she's called the Assistant Superintendent of Police, Musimenta, in Kampala, who came to manage the small protest of about maybe less than 10 people carrying iron sheets.
And she was...
and then she was dragged on the...
You can call it woman handled.
Woman handled. So if I am a senior superintendent of police manning that police post, I believe you have some men and women. And I saw so many, about 3-4 trucks. Why would I jump? I'm a lady, jump on these young men, pull, then they humiliate me and put me down on a rainy day. So I think we need to be cautious. Or does it relate to training or to try to show being overzealous?
So you credit the Kenyan police for...
Yes, you saw the movement. You see crowds and crowd surging, but you are very careful on when to release
At
bullets.
one point they ran away.
You evaluate.
And
is
in
there
Uganda
risk?
we looked at it as cowardice.
But you can withdraw. It is okay to withdraw and then re-strategize if you have been outnumbered.
Dr. Gerard, the East African community.
That guy, in my view, they must make an example of that guy.
Who?
That guy who was tearing the uniform.
Of the police woman here.
Office. In my view, they must make an example of that one.
What do you mean? He's already in Ruzira, on remand?
I don't know where he is, but he should face the consequences.
Yeah.
That another one would be careful not to do that.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Dr. Gerard, the East African community, especially through the IARA, the East African Legislative Assembly, or the summit, or what it structures, I haven't heard or I haven't read, I haven't felt their response in this process. I don't know if you have.
Actually, the EAC has not had, apart from participating in the electoral monitoring and issuing recommendations in elections, I have not seen them strongly intervening where there is a serious contestation. And for me, the reason is clear. Almost every East African country has this electoral-related challenges and people disputing the outcome of the elections. For instance, Tanzania, we saw the first term of the late Professor Pombe Magufuli. The violence in Dar es Salaam was too much. I think that election is when the CCM came to the biggest test of its time, because you had the Civic United Front from Zanzibar cutting ties with the Chama cha Mapinduzi, and then Civic United Front allying with Chadema, which was the main opposition party. And then you saw an immediate Prime Minister, Lowassa, becoming the opposition joint flag bearer. So the tension was high, people were beaten, and therefore, in the second term of Magufuli, you saw these other gentlemen shot, Tindurusu, shot several times, fleeing to exile. So there are issues in Tanzania. Then in Kenya, you know, in Uganda, every election has been contested. So I think maybe inside them, they don't have this credibility of the let's go and interfere because we have similar problems. Burundi is a baby. I would call it a baby with due respect.
Okay, finally, Richard, you've said the talks are ongoing, the discussions are ongoing, and we are actually, a new week is coming, and what should we expect, especially after those violent protests this week, including this incident of goons raiding a farm? What should we expect?
I think this allowing, first of all, inviting people, encouraging them to go loot, both at President Kenyatta's farm, but also at Riders business. Yes, I think that encouragement, and also the delay of any police intervention. I think that was one of the tactics to also cause pain on the other side. Because you see what the two were accused to be the principals behind organizing and financing. There was a peculiar, I think there was a peculiar something that happened with Professor Nyang' Nyong'o. In Kisumu.
Who issued a statement, a notice stopping in his
and then it was the deputy governor leading the smaller crowds. So that was very telling. I think it's something we also need to read into, because the region which he's leading, for him to come out, what is it that is happening? Is there a split? So that's I think that's the other one. But for the talks, I think they are frantic now. I think the frantic efforts are to stop, to de-escalate the situation. Whether the talks are there or not, anyway, the momentum for the demonstrations will
rise.
Will go down.
Will go down.
Yes.
That's what you expect.
Yes, it will go down. The cost is high on all sides.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it will go down. But what that is going to yield is that there are going to be concessions.
Okay. Ms. Nashiba, in just one statement, one comment, what do you expect next week?
I expect de-escalation of violence, and I hope. We hope that already processes are on to try and have roundtable discussions to try to manage the tension that is happening. But also I want to highlight the fact that the issue of the youth as a factor in all these political violence scenarios that are happening. I think we have a challenge that we really need to manage of trying to empower our youth, economic empowerment, them being able to, to be productive, so that at the end of that day they are not seen as perpetrators of violence all the time. Yeah.
Your final shot, what do you expect this week?
I will be optimistic, hoping that the talks are already taking place behind the scenes, and we expect de-escalation.
Okay.
And then, of course, in the we shall also be seeing certain issues being addressed.
Okay.
That Mr. Ruto not running away because you want elections, you are running away with everything. And I think that is the objective that Raila wants, to put some brakes on Mr. Ruto.
Okay. Thank you so much, our viewers. And this is the dialogue. The panel agrees that indeed there could be, or there will be, some form of de-escalation, and we should not panic. Possibly we should not panic, and it's good that we now understand there are talks ongoing, the discussions ongoing, and our concern is legitimate, and it is real. If at all things go wrong across the border, then it will directly affect our economy, our lifestyles and everything. But let's go to our final topic for discussion this morning, and we again invite your comments and your contributions. Send your message on WhatsApp 0701 609906, as others have done. Tell us what you think about these investigations, the ongoing investigations into the diversion of relief items meant for Karamoja. We're talking about the Iron Sheets saga, And gentlemen and the lady, this week the list is growing. The list of alleged beneficiaries is growing. I saw comments, and from a report in Daily Monitor, Dr. Chris Bariomosi has been named. In there, John Baptist Nambeshe, isn't he the chief whip? The opposition chief whip has been named. Nathan Nandara Mafabi named. Major General Jim Wezi. For him, he said that is rubbish. He has never been part of it. General Kaindo Tafide, the Internal Affairs Minister,
actually he said they are sick.
He said those are sick in their heads who are trying to drag him into this whole thing. But what we know, the top government officials implicated in this particular saga have been recording statements this week. Others appeared before the Committee of Parliament, the Presidential Affairs Committee this week, and investigations are going on. And we must also note that there are multiple agencies involved in these investigations. You know, the IGG's office is investigating, police is doing the same, and even Parliament is doing the same. And actually, we have been told that the parliamentary committee, which traveled to Karamoja to do some investigations, are also presenting a report in Parliament next week. Quickly, Richard, what do you think is the direction these investigations are taking?
My position is still the same. We cannot miss a photo opportunity for someone at the anti-corruption court. How can we miss that one?
Actually, even the State House Anti-Corruption Court is also into this. So, State House Anti-Corruption Unit.
So we cannot miss a photo opportunity of some politicians at the anti-corruption court. How can we miss that one?
Someone going to Luzira?
We shall have that one. And then we shall run that one in our social media, and that will conclude part of the process, at least from the public eye. We cannot miss some of the MK movement, very committed members of parliament coming into cabinet. As the reshuffle will happen. I maintain my positions. We shall not see any major alignments regarding the appointments in the strategic regions. The oil region, they are very strategic. We will not see major realignment. We will see Parliament not biting. There are too many of its own we will see investigations that are going to be partly botched. So it's starting to be called sick, stupid, whatever. So there will be some botching, which allows for judicial escape routes on technicalities. We will see some of those. And what I would think also will happen, we will see a chorus of returnees, people who have rethought, kuchuchuka, I don't know, who have what?
Balukuka.
Yeah, they will kurokoka and return some iron sheets, and we will be moving on to the next issue.
Are you not, I mean, what do you read from the list keeping to grow bigger and bigger and bigger?
No, I'm surprised that the list is small.
Oh.
With 9 billion, you can have many, many iron sheets. And they could have gone around even more. I think actually the list is not that particularly big. 9 billion shillings was the list of the amount in that project. So that's why I say, why is it the most concentrated on? It was the list of the amounts. There were big amounts on other things that I think we should pay attention to. We are not going to. But also the iron sheets that went around 200, 500. 9 billion can buy many, many iron sheets. So we could even have seen more. So the list is not that big as perhaps could have been. This is, the drama has...
Just started?
Has reduced.
Oh.
The drama has reduced.
Actually, we thought the anti-homosexuality bill would actually overshadow.
No. How do we miss? Because
it has,
I have said this before, and I'm saying it again. There are political gains that must be made. That's why you have photo opportunity at the anti-corruption wing. That's why you have these changes. That's why it is the political gains that must be made at this time.
Nashiba,
yes, please.
What do you make of the progress in the investigations?
The iron sheet saga, I should say, has picked a hype in the media. But why it has picked so much hype, that will be a discussion for another day. But for me, I should say that these investigations shall not kind of lead us to more tangible outcome in as far as reducing corruption in the country is concerned, because we've had so many corruption cases in this country. That Temangalo, there's so many funds that have been swindled in this country, and if you try to, search for the reports, they are nowhere to be seen, or even to try and look if the culprits have been investigated and maybe something done about them, nothing. So for me, I do not see any tangible results from these processes in as far as curbing corruption in this country is concerned.
What about the fact that now the list is growing bigger and bigger?
For the list to grow bigger, I also partly agree with what the previous speaker said. There could be political strings attached, wanting to spread the stains on so many people, so that at the end of the day, the culprits are many around. But I really do not. We just need to be deliberate until when we see that actually the very people who are involved in corruption cases are picked and something done about them. That is when we shall perhaps come to agree that perhaps these interventions can work.
Dr. Gerard, did you envisage a moment when top officials in government would be going to CID headquarters to record statements and all that, especially in this saga, the iron sheets? I mean, for just iron sheets, I don't know if this shows you that possibly there is something serious about this particular scandal, and that confirms Richard's assertion that something big is coming. There could be a major reshuffle coming and all that.
First of all, it's not the first time that some big shots have been invited to make statements and even tried for some of these offenses. We saw Chogam.
But that was a big one.
Yes, Chogam.
I'm talking about this small case of iron sheets.
He told you about 9 billion. But the whole project for iron sheets goats and logistics to facilitate distribution of these things was 39 billion.
39 billion.
So don't look at it as small. Okay, but what I wanted to, for the benefit of the viewers, is that there are people who have been arrested, like Chogam, for instance. We had the former vice president going to Luzira, but also within the bigger report of Chogam, we saw a team in Security Communications Commission who went for benchmarking in Malta before Chogam and came back without a report, without accountability. They were never. We had issues with procurement of communication gadgets, security equipment. Nothing was done. We had those who claimed to have washed cars for 500 million, 600 in 3 days, and nothing was done. We had issues with supplying soil to plant flowers at City Square. So you see, what I want to agree with Richard about is that in all of these, at least you'll see 1 or 2 people appearing and being taken there. Now, you asked about the growing list. One, I want to inform the viewers that the Office of the Prime Minister has a number of ministries there, specifically affirmative action ministries. For instance, Luero Triangle, Bunyora Affairs, Teso Affairs, and but now what is more confusing is that why did everyone, like I saw almost every MP from Bunyoro received iron sheets. So my question was that, is it because the Prime Minister is from Bunyoro, or because the Ministry for Bunyoro had nothing, so people had to go and raid Ministry for Karamoja Affairs?
Including the Honorable Minister for Finance.
Yes. Yes. So if you see all these people, or I was also imagining, are the mafias becoming so sophisticated that they should grow the list and include everyone? So they confuse the public and the investigators. That's another scenario was, because if you bring in everyone and Alamafabi and Ambeshe, you keep on growing the list, then
will the president sack the whole government?
Exactly. So at the end of the day, some people could be trying to run away, because, but what I can also predict is that someone or some 2 or 3 people will be charged with abuse of office, negligence of duty, and we shall see some people, but definitely there will be a reshuffle at some point.
At some point an axe will come down.
Yeah, the one I said, maybe Richard, if you are swinging, you could also invite me there.
I don't know, Richard, what you make of I mean, trying to get Jenoka and Odafiri, the Minister for Internal Affairs. And that is a very sensitive, a sensitive ministry. Actually,
the Deputy Attorney General said, I get these 100 iron sheets, then I hire trucks here to transport them to my constituency. Why can't I buy them from there?
And even the Security Minister, imagine Security Minister and Internal Affairs Minister, these are key ministries in investigations and
No, I don't think the iron sheet switch went there. I think it was the Raja of Nyoro of Sogan. I think those are the main beneficiary regions in this.
Actually, they had the chairperson
even
of the Committee on Presidential Affairs who is investigating on this.
So that's what I wanted to say. That how can part of the investigators be among the one that are being investigated? What are we talking? Really? So anyway, I want to see. Nashiba said she really doesn't expect much from this one. I share that statement.
Maybe we focus on the one of DPP and the State House.
And those ones will just do the political work. We shall just get the political things and we will move on.
And as a communication specialist, what do you make of the authorities blocking the media from covering part of these investigations, like going to Chibuli? You're not allowed, the media is not allowed to access Chibuli as this official.
Yeah, but I'm also, at least as a journalist, I trained in investigative journalism. So I am also wondering if I am coming to interview, we call it interrogate, someone and I have cameras around, what is the utility of the cameras?
No, I don't mean in the interrogation room.
So what are they going to do to
But
crowd?
you know that this minister has reported to Chibuli.
Yeah, but what is the value addition to the... I don't expect you to answer this. I'm just asking rhetorical questions. What is the value addition to my investigation for you to take a picture of somebody entering my office? I don't see the value addition. So I know that as journalists we are trying to get the most dramatic photo or video, but for the investigator...
No, we want to know, we want to tell the world possibly a story that even top government officials can abide by the law, can respect like these investigative officers, if they are called up to record a statement, they can come, and possibly there are others who don't care.
No, for me, I would, if I was the public relations person on the other side, I would be the one to control the narrative, to tell you the story. If there's a picture I want to give you, I would give it to you. But also I would be telling you about the one who has refused to come. Because I also have, as a communication or public relations officer, I also have my own objective. I have my own communication objective. So because you see, being a journalist and being a spokesperson, a communication person, strategist on another side, you understand that the media can actually kill your story.
Oh yeah.
Can actually distort and kill it. So I think in my view, for the CID, there was no value addition for allowing
to them.
To allow the journalists
to their
I
investigations.
think there would be no value addition.
What do you think, Dr. Gerard, for some of means the investigation is being done, in the dark, and this also relates to the IGG's process to have all leaders abide by the Leadership Code Act to declare their assets, incomes, and liabilities. And at one point, you had the president saying no, the army officers should declare through the CMI, not directly to the IGG's office. And again, the declarations are kept secret, they are not published. What do you make of the investigations, especially in corruption scandals, not being very transparent? I don't know if you have an issue with the process.
With this particular one in Chibuli, for me, I think the way the police is doing it is the right way, because, letting people in, question them, have their files, and they get out. Because also you know that if it is done publicly and the media is there to cover everything, probably some people may give incoherent different statements here and there. But if you keep it private, maybe another one will say different thing. So when it comes to analysis of information, it is okay. But when it comes now to the institutions like the IGG, the Leadership Code Act, for me, I think we need serious reforms. Because one, these people declare, and right now they are declaring online, but there's no format for verification of the information that they are giving, whether it's true or not. And also, because I think the IGG saw that...
Isn't verification done by the IGG's office at some level?
But the capacity issues,
okay.
How many civil servants, public servants are in the country, how many staff does the IGG have to know all this? And I think that's why she proposed that she has now two ideas. One, she was talking about lifestyle audit to see your salary is 2 million, you have properties of 2 billion, 3 billion here, different places. Where are you getting the rest? And I think at the celebrations of the Anti-Corruption Week, the president said, you go slow because some of these people are investing this money here. You may scare them. You may scare them and then they flee with this money and the country will lose. So to me that was really a negative because it frustrates the work of the IGG. And then two, I have seen her talking about sensitizing. She's looking for really people to partner with to sensitize the people to know that corruption is evil, so that the citizens can be involved in tracking the corrupt.
That is Honorable Betty Kamia's strategy to bring on board the population in the fight against corruption.
The fight against corruption.
To be his strategy.
And I think she has been selling this because I'm seeing even USAID here. I think they are willing to support money to put money into that. So for me, I believe that to be taken serious about transparency and corruption, we need to strengthen the news around. We need to reform certain legal reforms. We also need to strengthen the IGG and other agencies.
Okay. And what about the investigations going on concurrently? The IGG's office is still also investigating. Parliament is doing investigations. The police is doing investigations. Do you think that's I mean, that's okay, and possibly what do you make of those parallel investigations?
One, let me separate the one of Parliament, because the one of Parliament can be either used in the form of recommendations or it can be abandoned altogether if what it brings out does not incriminate or anything. So, but let me go to the State House Anti-Corruption Unit. There are some Ugandans who were being arrested and prosecuted by State House Anti-Corruption Unit. They ran to court. So the court says, no, it is not within the law. So they changed the mode of operation, that they would go after someone, investigate, but they share information with the Inspectorate of Government, and when it comes to prosecution, the file goes to the Director of Public Prosecution. So for me, I believe that the role of State House Anti-Corruption Unit, Inspectorate of Government, and the police is complementary.
Okay.
Then at the end of...
In fact, I can also tell you, somebody who has been part of it, that the officers in the anti-corruption unit are all from government.
Yeah.
So what happened is bring people from the DPP, bring people from the IGG, like I mean the guy who is deputy head of the unit was at the IGG, Israel. You have police officers who are deployed there. You have some intelligence guys, and then of course people from the State House, SFC and things. But actually what happens is, usually when they are going to arrest, they have an appropriate rank police officer who is best at the unit. And when they are going to prosecute, they also have an appropriate rank, but because it's under the DPP. So that's how it was. But for me, I think the way it was conceived previously was that role, just to add a presidential energy, to infuse presidential energy into the fight against corruption. And I think the leaders, both leaders, the Kano Nakarema and the Brigadier have been careful to maintain that relationship. Because like Werike says, people go to court and defeat you. And they defeat you on the technicality.
And do you find anything irregular about the IGG doing her investigation on the office, the police on one side and Parliament on the other side? When
the Iron Sheet saga started, I said, if you remember here, that there would be 5 institutions minimum. The same for NSSF. There would be 5 institutions minimum investigating. This is the usual approach, because these cases are political.
Well, the motivation is that the cases are political.
The deployment of all the 5 to go investigate is because the cases are political. Yeah. So the ultimate outcome must have political.
Because I have a feeling that if the police is investigating, then maybe the probe committee of Parliament should wait for the police.
Yeah, but then how will Parliament achieve its objectives? Its political objectives, if it doesn't go to investigate itself and come out with its own conclusion, because this is political.
Nashiba, what do you think?
What is saddening is, first of all, my view is not so much divergent from his. But what is saddening is that this issue is being approached from the political perspective, and they are looking forward
maybe because they are all politicians
for political gains.
The culprits.
But what we need to think of, and what we need to consider, is putting on that attire of humility to understand that Karamoja is a region that is suffering drought. They're having hunger, they are having raids, cattle raids, and of late they've been experiencing so much gun violence, especially among the youth. So many of them have died as a result. So an intervention that would come in handy and intentional to help a region that is sinking, that is grappling with a lot of issues. It is saddening that all we are focusing on is just to see how are we getting out of this as political champions and all that. So for me, I think the approach should be quite different, to be intentional and empathetic, to try and approach this issue from the humility point of view, and being intentional to help the region of Karamoja.
Good. I think we should be winding up, and viewers, if you have a comment on what you think about these investigations, you can send it in just 3-4 minutes. We'll be winding up the program. Dr. Gerard, you somehow hinted on it. Is the case becoming bigger than the handlers, the investigators? Because if you now had the Speaker of Parliament implicated, named in the scandal, the Prime Minister and all those, the what, and now you have the generals.
I think at the end of the day, the case is going to narrow down to certain people who had political responsibility. For instance, I don't know how my sister, who was in charge, or the two sisters who were in charge of the ministry, will get away with it, but I believe it may not go very well on their side. And also, from the reports I was hearing, there are also some technocrats who signed for this relief from the OPM, but as they took along the way, they also disappeared. And there's no evidence either in Moroto or Kotido that they handed over to so and so. So I believe some technocrats, especially from the districts, are also going to be arrested, and they will also end up in Luzira.
Okay.
But like I told you when this was unfolding, you will not grab everybody and you make the government to collapse. Certain decisions have to be taken politically by the head of state to ensure that, one, the government survives, but also maybe the public somehow is satisfied, or may not be satisfied but gets excited, and the whole thing passes.
Mugume Ronald is in Chirhura, and he said, thanks for the show. I am very sure the investigations are going nowhere. That is a political show that is going on. It is pretense, and it will die a natural death. That is what he thinks about the investigations. Richard Baguma, is it the case now becoming bigger than the investigators? I don't know.
No, for me, I think the political objectives are already mapped out. I think it's just the processes to justify those objectives. I think they already mapped.
Why do you think it is a predestined?
I think it's predestined. It was a golden opportunity that presented itself. Some people will pay it. There will be some pain and some cost to some individuals. But that it will have a fundamental change on the region in Karamoja. The youth that Nashiba is talking about, who are dying, and many of them getting maimed and wounded. The women who are suffering, the children with malnutrition, displacement, and losing their livelihoods. I think those ones, their quagmire really goes on.
Was it necessary to, for the group of youth to demonstrate and protest on the streets of Kampala? As investigations are going on?
Because they have a political objective. They turn whoever they were. Yes, somebody must quarrel. Somebody must be angry. I keep talking about the anger threshold of the population of Uganda. The anger threshold of the population of Uganda is so low that whatever happens, there is very little reaction. I cannot be part of those who would blame a group of young people who are quarreling about the depth, the perversity of the impunity and corruption in this country. I cannot be part of a group that blames them. What I think is dangerous is for good people to keep quiet when evil is happening. And I think that's very dangerous, and that's where we are.
And in Subuga, Paul says, Chitalo nnyo si yaffe kubanga bonna abagundiivu mu government webanga bonna basongeddwamu mu kyokubba amabaati g'Ekalamoja seno yafadda.
I saw my friend, the state minister for defense, or both. And the man saying, if they have said I stole the Zion sheets, I took them, but I didn't know what I was taking. I'll let them give me 6 months. I work, I begin paying this.
That's what the Kuchuchukai was talking about. People are repenting.
You're parting short, Richard. I'll start from you.
No, I think that we need to go beyond the iron sheets. I think that the perversiveness, the depth of looting of public resources, I think must be a major matter of concern. I now saw already the non-aligned movement conference we are going to hold here. I already saw members of parliament protesting about some 100 and something billions going somewhere. I think this has become, I saw we are going to give some trillions to some mustached. There is a man with a mustache. We are going to, apparently we are planning to give some trillions. I think this bonanza really is bleeding physically,
but the president
bleeding the resources of the country.
The president has demonstrated that he's now very much, serious about it.
For me, I think the real bleeding,
starting with PDM.
No, I think the real bleeding is not the money, the physical things that is happening.
Okay.
I think the real bleeding is the hearts of Ugandans and our heads. And I think Apollo, I keep saying that is fuel. That is fuel for a fire.
Nashiba, yes. You're parting short.
Yes, I think Dr. Warike mentioned, made a hint about it, something concerning a reform in the law. So we want to make some reforms and also to make some of these government arms, for example, the judiciary and the parliament, to make sure that they are at least independent, so that there are checks and balances in place. Otherwise, if we continue the way we are continuing, we are likely to see more scenarios of, corruption, impunity, taking place, and people will steal and they will walk away with it because, the law may not catch them, or the law may not be strong enough to try to, put things in order. And I also, you've mentioned about the PDM, which is aimed at
briefly, just 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. At increasing household incomes. But if we do not address the issues of corruption we are having at hand, even such programs that are intended to increase household incomes will not yield the intended result.
Your parting shot, Dr. Gerard.
My parting shots, I want to assure the government that corruption is a cancer that threatens the existence of a state. If people feel all the resources collected are being stolen, and at the end of the day, if people don't feel the presence of the state in form of service delivery, then the ruling party and the state is threatened. And therefore, it should be an effort of everyone in government, the citizens, to ensure that we ensure that we fight this cancer called corruption.
Okay. I don't know when that time will come when what Richard Baguma prays for, the anger threshold. I don't know when that time will come, and especially to fight the thuggery, the theft of public funds. We seem still to be comfortable in our spaces. We don't care whether they steal, where they do what, because it is government money, but it is our money. My name is Tim Apollo. I must thank the panel, Richard Baguma, Madam Nakabira Nashiba, and Dr. Gerard Wanzala. Thank you so much, our viewers, for being there and following up. Let's catch up next Saturday. It is The Dialogue. Good afternoon and a good week ahead.